Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into Notes of Design. To help support our mission spread knowledge, we have a very special guest in today's episode. Let's welcome Wolfgang Bremer, a German-Canadian award-winning design veteran with 20 plus years of experience and a rare combination of design and product knowledge. He currently serves as Vice President at Design at Volkswagen Group Charging. As a design leader in multiple Fortune 500 companies and highly funded startup, Wolfgang has managed global design teams and worked on products used by tens of millions of users in 190 plus countries. In this episode, we dive deep into the exciting world of EV charging experiences. Wolfgang will share his insights on how consumer attitude towards EVs have shifted and the key trends shaping the design of these experiences. We'll also explore the challenges and opportunities in creating accessible and user-friendly charging stations that stand out in a growing market. Also, Wolfgang will share his vision for the future of EV charging, where convenience, innovation, and sustainability interact. But this episode isn't just about EV charging experiences. We also got a glimpse into Wolfgang's creative process, how he balances business needs with creative freedom, and how he fosters a culture of innovation within his team. We also spoke on some personal stories and lessons learned from overcoming creative blocks. So buckle up and get ready to be charged up about the future of EV charging. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into Nodes of Design. In this episode, we have a very special guest with us. Hi Wolfgang, welcome to Nodes of Design.
Hi Tej, thank you so much for having me.
So how was your day so far?
It's actually quite cold here in Berlin currently. I think we have -8 degrees, so I'm trying to snuggle up into blankets and drink hot coffee and tea. Otherwise, quite exciting. How about yours?
It's quite rainy today in Hyderabad here in India. And super excited for this recording. So if you could give a brief about yourself to our listeners out there.
Sure. So my name is Wolfgang. I am working in design for, I guess it's like 20 plus years now. I started as an individual contributor, my background being UX and UI design, a little bit of research and some kind of a hybrid designer, I guess, like lots of things in between. I started in a medium-sized agency and then continued on working at startups, bigger organizations like Nokia and SAP. And I'm currently working as the VP of design at Volkswagen Group Charging, sometimes also known as ELI, where I handle everything design-related, software, hardware, and many things in between.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So what was your journey into design? How did you start? And what are your tips to the beginners on starting their design journey?
That's a great question. I think I wasn't really sure what to do. So, I mean, when I was in school, I was like, what can I do? What's out there? And there are so many different jobs I think we are not even aware of. Nowadays, I feel like because we're so interconnected, there's even more. So it's really hard to see what are the possibilities, I guess. So what I really enjoyed doing in school was arts classes, to be honest. And I like speaking English. Not that I was good like in class in school and English, but I really enjoyed reading English books and watching English movies and all these kind of things. So I thought maybe something in that direction would make sense. I'm a person who can get bored at things which are too theoretical, like if it's pure numbers and pure like written things and non-tangible. I think this is not, if I would have to do it all the time, that would be nothing for me. Let's put it this way. So I was looking for something where I can actually do something. And when I do something, you can see something at the end, like, look, this is the result. There's something to show and to share, I guess. And I think during school, one day I picked up an HTML book, like, oh, this is HTML. Back then, maybe, I don't know, 2 point something or 3 point something, I don't know. And it was one of these really thick books where you teach yourself how to do it, or the book teaches you, And I was really inspired by it because you could write something which looked like back then like tables and all these kind of things, and then you flick a switch and suddenly there's something there. So you created something out of nothing, and I was really intrigued by that. And then I was looking for something where I could do more of these kinds of things, and this is how I basically stumbled into design. I would say this is like the one part of it, and the other part of it is that as a child, I was always fascinated by cars, how they look, how they all look very different, how even little details can make a difference, to the degree that I could point out when a new generation of a model came out to my parents, look, the headlights change, or the taillights change, or the rims, or what have you, like even really small things change. And then it became almost like a game when we were on family vacation or we were taking road trips or something. I would look through the windshield and I would point out to my parents, basically, look, this is this car, this is that car. They were totally fascinated by it. But for me, it was just normal. I just noticed and I somehow could memorize these kind of things, I guess. And I think these things putting together somehow brought me into the realm where details matter, I guess. Design.
So what are your tips for the beginners on starting the design journey?
Good question. I think in the beginning, take it slow, look really left and right, what's out there, because I mean, design is just a single term, but it entails so many different things, right? And I think for people who are not in design yet or not very clear about design, it's very often UI, something you see, like you pick up your phone, you open an app, something you see. But there's so much more to it, like how things actually work, how we can actually solve problems, content design, the writing, how we phrase things, how we address the user, doing research, like talking to actual people, finding out about their days, their needs and what potential solutions could be. And then using this information, again, to create something out of nothing. And that within budget and within given time, like a lot of restrictions, but usually we're still able to pull something off, which is hopefully really good for the user in the end.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. So let's begin our episode today with energizing innovation, designing for EV charging experiences. So wanted to ask you, how have the customer attitude towards EVs has changed in the last few years, and what trends are currently shaping the design of EV charging experiences?
Oh, that's a great question. I think if I take a step back, I mean, EVs and the charging experience are still quite new, right? I mean, combustion engine vehicles feels like they have been there forever, air quotes, but EVs, everything is still very new. And it feels like, I want to say, like in the early days of, I don't know, smartphones, let's say, or like touch interfaces, or voice interfaces. Like almost every couple of months or at least once a year, something comes out which seems to change things profoundly. And it's such an open field still, like a blank sheet of paper where you can do a lot of things still. I think we are still to a degree in the realm of the early adopters driving EVs, because there's sometimes still, I'm not really sure how to phrase it, but like people are still unsure, I guess, about, is an EV something for me? What are the pros? What are the cons? Is it really a vehicle I can use, kind of thing, And I think it's really interesting that offers, because of that, a lot of space to innovate and try to understand people and their fears, talk to people and understand how they use vehicles, where they drive with them, how long the trips are, who's going with them, but also where they live and where they park, and then of course can charge their car. Because in combustion engine vehicle, it's always like, well, I have a car, obviously I have to drive to a gas station to refill it, unless I run dry and then I have to walk to the next gas station with a canister and bring something back to my vehicle. But with the EVs, it changes completely, because you can just charge at home. You can just park your car in your garage or underground parking, even on the street, plug it in, you charge, So because the energy, the electricity is in many cases right there, so it levels the playing field. It gives you a lot of advantages. But speaking of advantages, there's of course also disadvantage, right? Because today, many of the vehicles are still slower to recharge than refilling a combustion engine vehicle. So if you go to a gas station and refill your car, it takes maybe 3-4 minutes, depends, I guess, right? And then you're off again. But for an EV, it takes longer. So there's, again, I guess what I mentioned earlier, like this situation where there is put a constraint on you as a designer, and you should try to make the best out of it, right? Instead of saying, that's not going to work. More like, hey, what can we do about it? And I think there's a lot of ways to innovate there from a design point of view, like from an experience point of view, but also, of course, and even stronger from a technology point of view, right? I mean, almost every day I read something in the news, there's a new battery and there's an advancement, there's something else. And recharging is so much faster now with whatever kind of platform, which automaker just, came out with, like CES now. And all these kind of things, or battery swapping, even if I think about e-scooters and stuff, right? Instead of just recharging, just swap out the battery, there's like all these things also in Asia, for example. It's really big. So there's always a solution, an opportunity to do something with it. And this is something that really intrigues me in the EV and the EV charging area.
Thank you, Wolfgang. So, what are some of the most significant design challenges you face when creating or designing an EV charging station or charging experiences, and how do you address these design challenges?
I think one of the big problems is to actually see the experience end to end. Because if you think about an EV, air quotes, just a vehicle, but it's so much more, right? Because nowadays, as a user, you expect not just to have a car and get in and drive. Very often, there's a companion app to the car, right? Like, oh, what's the state of my car? What can it, like, how much is it charged? Is it all good, basically? And then, of course, this also translates over to charging. So if you charge your car, you would want to know, even if you're not in the car, what's the situation? What's going? Is it charging? Is there a problem? And I find there's still some room for improvement to make things easier for the user to understand, like the current situation, how long will something take? And there are still sometimes situations where something simply doesn't work, either on the charging device itself, or on the car, or somewhere in between. And sometimes we're not sure yet, So it's like these things, many things coming together, where we're trying to make the best out of it to inform the user what to do. Just yesterday, for example, I actually had a problem charging the car, and turns out that the charger itself, they was broken in the moment, I guess, but there was no clear message yet. It was like I tried like 3 times, and was like, I doubt it's my car. It's not the card itself to authorize, so something must be going on with the charger. So I drove to the next one, and it just worked. So there's a lot of small things we still have to figure out. But I think the bottom line is it's very much about the end-to-end experience. And it can be really hard to get it right, because for many brands, it's not that they own the vehicles and the apps and charging situation and like everything, like end to end, So you usually have to work with party A and B and maybe even C. And then you have to make sure they communicate properly. And in case there is an error or a mistake or problem or what have you, that we clearly communicate this to the customer. So at least the customer knows, oh, I understand there is whatever situation going on. Now I have the chance to react. Instead of hiding it and saying like, oh, something magically is happening, try your luck somewhere else, So I think this getting this end-to-end right is probably key for the automakers and the charging solution providers to get it right.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. So, how do you design an EV charging experience that stands out in an incredibly crowded market? And how do you ensure EV charging experiences are accessible and user-friendly for all different sorts of demographic and including those with different disabilities?
That's a great question. I would almost refer back to the last question saying, for me, the bottom line is very, very much the end-to-end customer experience or end-to-end user experience, because this is what really matters. It's not so much that you choose a vehicle. I find, especially about EVs nowadays, like, oh, I really like the look of this vehicle. But you actually also look into how does the car perform? Not necessarily speed-wise, but nowadays charging-wise. How long does it take to go from 20 to 80%? Where can I go? Where can I charge? What app does it come with? Does it work? What do people say? Like everyday people, I go to the internet, I look up reviews, and there are some brands which are really good at producing, wow, amazing cars, but the software of the apps is just not up to par. And then there's the opposite, where you have great software, amazing, but the cars are like, yeah, it's okay, So I think it's important to get a really good level of putting these things together. That being said, I think nothing is more crucial to actually talk to people, talking about research and finding out how people use charging stations, how they manage to use an app or a charging card to authorize to actually plug it in to charge, to see things like, oh, is the car now set to charge to 80% or to 100 or somewhere in between? Like all these bits and pieces coming together, right? And I think there's nothing more important than doing the research and actually trying things out with people, like build a prototype, no matter if it's software, hardware, get people in a room, or rather, I guess, like on the field with a car and a potential charging station, and let them try and let them fail. And then let's learn from all the failures, right? And I think this is especially true for accessibility topics, right? How can people, for example, I don't know, using a crutch or being in a wheelchair, or having any other kind of disadvantage, be able to use these kind of devices? And there I'm talking especially if you talk about or think about charging, like the DC charging plugs and cables, they can be quite heavy, right? So how can you actually bring them over to the car? Can you mount something on top of the charging station to make it easier to swing left and right, to counter the weight? And what options do we have, right? And I think it's really important to try this out and not just, well, I'm going to trust my gut and throw something out there and hope it works. These things can be like mistakes in hardware in this realm can be very expensive, right? And of course, we don't want to put anybody at disadvantage.
So, Wolfgang, what is your vision for the future of EV charging experiences, and how do you think they will evolve over the next decade?
Great question. And it's really hard to predict, I would say. But given that almost every day there's some news coming out and seeing that the batteries get better and better, I think it will become something towards charging becomes the normal thing, and it will be much faster to charge the vehicles, no matter if at home or on the go or where have you. I'm not sure over what time that will happen, right? So if you now, or newer cars think charging happens or can apparently already happen from 20 to 80% within 10 minutes, that is already quite fast, And then at the same time, the capacity of the batteries gets larger and larger, so you can actually drive further miles or kilometers. That's quite incredible. But I think to still counter this time, there will be more situations where places will try to offer certain amenities, like the bathroom or have a quick snack or a coffee or tea, what have you. These kind of things to make it just nicer, almost have a lounge kind of feeling. I would predict that this will rather be the way than for EVs swapping the batteries. It's just a gut feeling. I mean, I really like this idea as well, and it can go quite fast, I think down to 5-6 minutes these days. But that also means you need a lot of infrastructure, and if you don't happen to live in the city, it can only be part of the puzzle, So, but I'm really curious, and I think it's a really great place to be in, because I would almost compare it with AI these days, because there's so many things happening every day with so many smart people around the world trying to tackle different levels and different layers of problems, that it's totally clear that every day new advantages are being made. And yeah, we should really dive into it and try to create the best solutions we can. And not just, like if I come back to the combustion engine vehicles, not just stick basically to the status quo, have cars and gas stations, but how can we get away from the situation? How can we actually make it better and bring it closer to the users, and not the user to the gas station, but how can we bring the product actually to the people?
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. So, Wolfgang, how do you balance the business aspects like prior demands and budgets with creative sides of design projects?
That's a great question. And I think probably one of the most difficult to answer. I guess, as we designers love to say, it depends. I think it's very important to give the designers the room to actually be themselves, to understand them, their motivation, why they are in the position they are in, to really understand their goals. Where do they want to go and what motivates them? And what can I, as a leader, manager, what have you, help them to actually go there? So give them some breathing room and nudge them always in the right direction. I think it's important to also point out to them, like, this is our goal. This is like the North Star we want to go. This is the timeline we have and the budget, right? Like the frame, I guess, framing things and getting them on track. At the same time, there's pretty much always a situation where people say, oh, but we need this earlier and our budget is only this and you don't have time to do, I don't know, usually it's research or other things to actually, where we designers feel to do things properly, they're trying to cut things. But I think it's important to understand that this doesn't only happen to design, right? That happens left and right everywhere. If you talk about sales or marketing or go-to-market or anything really, right? So I guess most of the companies are in for the profit, right? So they're trying to make the most out of it. They're looking at their return of investment. So what does it actually help to pour money into A, B, C, right? And then they need to see what's coming out of that to validate their thinking that it makes sense, or to prove them wrong. Oh, I miscalculated. I learned I have to do better next time and give them maybe more money, time, or people. And I think it's really important for design to keep evangelizing and talking to the executives and everybody else in the company, really, to explain to them what design is all about, really, because it's not just making things pretty as it's often being referred to. We had a saying at SAP where our team was saying that design is not putting lipstick on a pig, and it's exactly right, because you're not involved only at the end and you're trying to make things pretty. No, you should be, just like everybody else in the organization, be involved right from the beginning, right? To help make better choices, to help nudge people towards the right way or keep them on track. And I think it's very important for design to be involved, because design is something, or design should be something, which goes pretty much across everything. So like design is almost like the glue between things. If you think about engineering and product and design, these three at least, they should make up a very tight-knit team. And they should be working together tirelessly from the beginning, through the midst of it, until the very end. Because there will always be situations where something will not work out the way we planned initially. And then we have to find ways of making it work. And who not better suited than a designer with experience in user experience to still create something, even in a situation where you feel like, oh, we can't get this right. No way. What better person to have on your team to try to still get it right somehow? And I think it's very important. I know we designers have been doing this, it feels like forever, to advocate for design, And I would almost say that an added hurdle to this whole situation is, I think most of us people, we don't really like to brag how good we are at something or how fantastic we solved something in the past. But I think in this situation, it's very important to actually do marketing for the design team, for the design org, for the designers themselves within the organization or the whole company, to actually open the eyes of the other stakeholders, to ensure they understand what design actually is all about. How involving design, also early, of course, will help them make better decisions and save money by doing it, And I find often designers keep complaining about not having that famous seat at the table, but very often it's their own fault, because they just expect to be invited by people to join without putting the effort and the work in to explain what design is about and to actually earn that seat at the table, to prove to the other stakeholders or executives, this is what I bring to the table. This is how I can make things better. This is how I can help make you better decisions in the first place. And this is how I can help you save money, basically. And at the same time, create and ship better product, And I think it's very important to see this all holistically and not just like, oh, there's a design team, there's a product team, there's a marketing team. In the end, it's very much about teamwork. We as one team want to create a great product with a great user experience and put this out into the world.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. So as a design leader, how do you foster creativity and innovation within your team?
Oh, good one. Yeah, that can be tough. I mean, I guess the biggest problem with being creative and innovative is very often that you can't just do it. It's like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to be creative now. Or I'm going to sit down, I'm going to innovate something. That's usually not how it works, right? So I think it's very important to bring people into a situation, and myself included, where I feel like, okay, I'm in a good spot. I can take some time and I have the necessary information to come up with something, like certain boundaries but also the vision and all the information I can get. And I think what's really important for the designers is we need to ask more often the question, why? Like, why are we doing something? Why are we trying to solve this problem? Is this really the problem you're trying to solve? Like run me through why the user has or seems to have this kind of problem. And when we keep asking these questions, I find we often find out that although somebody assumes this is the problem, we should solve it, the problem is actually something else, starting usually somewhere earlier along the journey. And if you can be in the position to ask these kind of questions and earn the trust from the other stakeholders to understand, or to let us understand what is going on and what problem we actually should be solving, then you can solve something together. I think it's also very important to ensure that the people trying to solve problems, and that goes beyond design, of course, are in a good spot in the sense of psychologically safety, that they know they are valued, that they know the work is important to the company as a whole, that they know they have some time and there's budget enough and all these kind of things, and especially also that it's okay to fail at times, of course. We are trying to avoid it. And like, I have two young daughters. I feel like we often teach to, oh, don't fail, but I think it's rather, you can always fail, because if you make a mistake, this is how you learn things, so I guess it would be good to embrace a little bit more small failures, for example, via research, like create a prototype, show something to people, see, well, this is not gonna work, or this is not working. But good to know, because if I wouldn't have found out now, I might have shipped it and then I would have found out on the market. And that would have been a much bigger mistake, a much bigger failure. So why not, as people keep saying, why not fail early, like fail in a controlled environment, see how things are moving. And I think it's important to give people this room to actually fail. And I think it, of course, also always depends on the scale of things, right? So if you're a small startup and you have like 20 users, it can be hard to make a good decision, because it's hard to actually talk to your people, But the decisions you make also don't have such a significant impact yet. But if you think about big companies, for example, like hundreds of thousands or millions of users, it becomes much more crucial to test things, right? Just imagine somebody rolled something out on your operating system and it just doesn't work for a million people. What a disaster, So better try to get things right in an ideal world. But so if I take off my design hat now and put on my business hat, it of course always depends again, right? Like, how much time do we have? How much budget do we have? Do we really have to test every small detail? But then I would counter, I guess, with my design hat on again, like, well, it depends on, are we working on something totally new? Are we in an ideation phase? Or are we trying to rework something which is already existing, like a small feature somewhere? Are we tweaking something? And in what place of the product are we tweaking something? Is it something the user uses every day, like 20 times? Or is it something, I don't know, like a small setting somewhere, infrastructure, people go there, I don't know, once every 6 months, right? So there's different levels of things. And although we designers love to say, no, this is important, I think we also have to realize that there are definitely different levels of importance for these kind of things, right? But of course, we should keep pushing for, doing the right things.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. So what are some of your favorite design projects or achievements, and what makes them special to you?
Oh, this is tough. So I think it usually has to do with people pulling off the seemingly impossible via teamwork, ideally, not like a single lone star doing something by themselves, but really something where you see this came together because a great team worked on something, And I think it's very important to not just focus on design here, but really design and product and engineering. How can we together solve problems? In my experience, one of the best situations when you can go into a room together with an engineer or product manager as a designer and hash out an idea on the whiteboard. Everybody gets a pen, you have a nice whiteboard there, and you try to figure something out. Somebody might have an idea or somebody sees a problem, and then we are there and we're trying to jointly solve the problem. And of course, the designer will always say, oh, that has to be perfect here and there, but it's very good to be brought back to reality at times and being grounded into, yes, that would be ideal, but this also takes that long, how about we do something else? And I think it's very important to bring this information or the information out of the heads of the people together to make really good decisions, which then lead to great product. I think one of the things I was very happy about was many years ago, I used to work at a startup, and we were trying to turn an existing product with an existing user base into something else within a very short period of time, because we noticed that the first product unfortunately would fail, so we had to do something about it, And so it was decided that product and engineering and design should work together for like 2-3 months to try their best to actually save the product by turning into something else. And that was an example for me where you could really see people are going all in, it's like with ideas and thinking and prioritization and all the information really working together to make something happen, and after these, I think it was 2 to 3 months, we actually shipped something which was appreciated by the people, and by the team and the company, and it gave all the people involved and the company as a whole this feeling of, wow, look what we are actually capable of achieving when we work together as a team, and these are usually the moments for me like, wow, this is perfect. This is exactly how it should be. So these are the most proud moments for me.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. So could you share your personal experience of how did you overcome a significant creative block and what lessons did you learn out of that experience?
Yeah, that happens. I mean, from time to time, there's just a situation where, as mentioned earlier, you cannot just be creative or innovative. Sometimes it just doesn't work. So high level, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put myself in a place where I feel I actually can do it, and often that actually involves spending time with my wife and my daughters to recharge the batteries, like be in a good spot, sit down, have a cookie, a coffee, a tea, whatever, spend some time, play a bunch of board games, hear what the kids did today at school or outside playing with friends, and just try to, I want to say, like, shut off your mind and just listen and enjoy the moment. And I guess it's similar to these kind of midnight thoughts or shower moments, where like, oh, I have an idea or something. Sometimes it just comes to you that you're like, oh, like subconsciously it's still somewhat in the back of your mind, and maybe there's an idea, but the most important part for me there is, like, try to get out of this often seemingly stressful bubble. Like, I need to find a solution now, because then you won't, try to get out of it, try to let your mind wander, try to deal with something else, and then come back in the situation which you can shape, hopefully. It's like, okay, I'm in a good spot now. I recharged my batteries. I took a nap. I don't know, or maybe the next day in the mornings instead of the last day very late in the evening, right? Because we're all getting tired, of course. So that usually helps myself to be put into a better spot. And I remember I had a situation once at Nokia where I was trying to design a dashboard, and no matter what I did, it just didn't feel right. It's like I chose colors and fonts and positioning, and it just felt boring, I would say, and I kept looking at it, and then I closed it. I was like, okay, afternoon, I don't know, 2, 3 p.m. I was like, I close this one, do something else, and then the next day I came to the office. The designers often know this, or this feeling. You open up your stuff and you look at it, it's like, wow, what was I thinking yesterday? This looks horrific, and then you just, okay, scratch this, blank piece of paper or blank canvas, and then you just start over. You place things and you play with it, and you come to terms with yourself and the design. It's like, hey, this actually works now. I'm much happier with it. And I think what helps in the process is, again, to get inspired. Like look left and right, look outside, like be inspired by colors and shapes and nature and all these kind of things, and play with the possibilities. Try not to be too stuck to things. And I think that can nowadays be harder, because I'm also a proponent of design systems, but we should make sure that they are not limiting us too much as well. That we say, oh, but we have this component already. But if you have a feeling that doesn't work, then you still need to find a way. And I don't want to say around it, definitely not. But you need to find a way to make it work, that it feels unique and nice and works for the user, but also fits into the overall product line.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Wanted to know your perspective on how do you envision the evolution of design with rise of AI?
That's a good question. The other day I was reading something and it resonated quite well with me. It was something along the lines of, AI will not steal your job, but somebody who uses AI will. And I thought, that's actually probably quite close to how it's going to be, right? Because to me, I mean, AI is such a broad field and it can do so many things. But in the end, I think it's a tool. And we should be able to make use of that tool. If I think about design things, for example, designing presentations, which, by the way, I really don't enjoy doing. So AI can be my friend there, right? So I can get AI to do the first run through, let's say, like the structure, proposed structure and proposed design to a degree. I can feed it information from brand design and from my company, all these kind of things, right? So it gives me a first draft. So I basically have to do very little work for this first draft, which I wouldn't enjoy in the first place anyway. And then I can use this and I can find it. And this is the part I actually like, right? Like work-wise, right? And I think it's similar to many other things. If you can use it, that it makes your work and your life easier, I think it will be a fantastic tool. And that's not only about design, I would assume, but also other things. If you could, I guess, as a photographer, have the AI do the first runs through the pictures you took at, I don't know, a wedding or some other celebration, and you probably have to go through, I don't know, 1,000 pictures or so, I would assume it can become dreadful, So why not make the best of it, have the AI take the first step, and then you look at them and you adjust to your likings, So you take the mundane part out of it and you focus on the important part. And I would think this can be really powerful for basically any area. And this is only just like, I would say, for tools and workflow, right? But if you think about other things now, if you think about that, apparently AI can help to understand voice commands better, these kind of things that you don't have to exactly say what, to get the machine to understand you. I think this is amazing. It just makes the experience much better. And it doesn't really affect anybody's job in that sense, because the people who have to build the AI into the product, they're doing the same kind of work and just better for the user in the end, So for me, it's really about trying to embrace how can we use or make use of that new tool, which is AI, to focus on the things which we like the most or we find are more important or most important, and really, bring these things together. It's like teamwork. If you have a UX designer and UI designer, and the UX designer says, I'm not good at UI, and UI designer says the same for UX, you start somewhere and you hand it over and the person continues, And if you bring these things together, I think that would probably be really interesting to see how that speeds up things and, inspiring to a degree as well.
Thank you, Wolfgang, for sharing all these wonderful insights with us. So could you please share with us, how does your day look like, or any interesting stories?
Oh, sure. Well, I guess my days, no day is the same as the other. It usually starts with reading emails in the mornings, attending stand-up, these kind of things, trying to get a feeling for where are we at overall, in the current situation with all the things going on left and right. I spend way too much time in emails and Excel, and I don't want to say meetings because, people always bash meetings, but I think meetings are actually really helpful when they're helpful, right? And then it comes down to how can we make a meeting actually helpful, but I guess that's a different story. I try to be available for the people I work with most, like the designers and all the peers left and right. I try to spend as much time as I can with the executives and my peers to understand what's happening, what's going on, what's the plan, or has something changed, and try to inform all the people we are working with to be able to make better decisions, right? Because as we all know, every day things change. How can we adapt? What is the priority today or this week, this month, this quarter? And how do decisions shape what we're actually working on? I think it's also super crucial for me to spend time directly, like in one-on-ones with the people I'm responsible for. I love hearing from them and understanding how they feel, where they at, where they might have problems, and especially how I can help. Because for me, the most important part is I like to say, like, opening doors where doors have to be open and closing doors where doors have to be closed, Opening in the sense of, can I make an introduction? Can we get another tool for you to be better at what you're doing? Can we get some research done to inform you better? These kind of things. Versus closing doors when somebody's really busy and somebody else wants to distract them. Like, no, leave this person alone. Like, they're really busy on something really important, like being a shield there, I guess. And to nudge people in the right direction for if you're good in time and budget, what the next steps should be to really bring people together for the design team, but also beyond team boundaries, I would say. Because it's important to not just, like be in your little silo, product, engineering, design, marketing, sales, what have you, but really who should we talk to today? Like where can we get some input? And this is really, really crucial for me. But yeah, so for me, it's unfortunately not very much hands-on anymore, unless I'm doing some, I would say, like high-level vision work in Figma, and like, I envision this one very roughly, like go this direction kind of thing. But then more, I guess communicating, which I guess we humans are terrible at, but we're trying to be better at it.
Thank you, Wolfgang. So we'll conclude the show by your 3 favorite book recommendations and also people who inspire you the most in this space.
That's difficult, but I was thinking about it. So I think my 3 favorite books is the first one is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, one of the people who used to work at Pixar. I think he still works at Pixar. It's very interesting from a creative point of view, like how designers, creatives work in a business environment. I think it's really interesting, and it's not boring at all. It's really interesting to read. Within a couple of days, you can read through it, and it's wonderful. Then my number second, I would say, is Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Leoncini. It's also very good. It's more removed from design, pretty much actually. It's more about how teams or executives work together. And to me, that was quite eye-opening, because I think we often are stuck in how we as a team work, but don't focus so much how we work with our peers, like how does somebody from design work with somebody from engineering, works with somebody from product, works with somebody from marketing, how these actually work together, So that was very, very, very eye-opening and inspiring. And number 3 would be Herding Tigers by Todd Henry, which is very much tigers being the designers. How do you keep them in line in that sense? How do you inspire them? How do you motivate them? That's also a very good book. People who inspire me, that is really hard. Definitely my wife and my 2 daughters, for sure. Then who also inspires me are often junior people. It's like if I think about junior designers, there's very often a situation I find where junior designers are much better than seniors. I'm not sure exactly why. My guess is because maybe they're approaching things in a way that is different than how you would do it when you would have more experience. I don't know, but I had so many wonderful situations working with junior designers, very inspiring, very hardworking, that I would hope and wish that more people would hire junior designers. And I think if I would name a single person I'm inspired by, I would say it's Peter Skillman, who is currently the global head of design at Philips, former IDEO, Nokia, Amazon, and Microsoft, and so forth. I think he's just a great leader. He has this presence, it's just very inspiring. The things he does, how he communicates with people, how he enables people to be creative and innovative. I think that's really fantastic.
Thank you, Wolfgang, for sharing all these wonderful recommendations with us. We are looking forward to host you again in our future coming episodes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time, Tej. It's wonderful to speak with you, and I will be happy to return anytime. Thank you.